The country of Jordan is taking drastic steps to prevent the coronavirus from spreading. A strict 24-hour curfew will soon be underway across the Middle Eastern nation. No one is allowed outside except for medical personnel. Right now, Jordan has nearly 300 confirmed coronavirus cases, but there are growing fears of a major outbreak happening nationwide, especially among Syrian refugee camps and the country's poorest communities.
All right, so let us bring in CBS News producer Amjad Tadors. Amjad, you are in Jordan's capital city of Amman, sort of keeping track of everything that's going on. So bring us up to speed with the latest developments. 300 cases, it doesn't seem like a lot, which is good news, but clearly there are concerns moving forward. What's happening in Jordan?
Well, the country has been under lockdown virtually since March 14th. The government had taken serious preemptive measures here and basically imposed some sort of an emergency law, and the army took over the streets and they said nobody should be leaving their homes. Now, people are allowed to go out during the day from about 10 in the morning to 6 p.m., but they're only allowed to walk around in their neighborhoods, and they have allowed the local stores to open so people can shop. But nobody is allowed to drive except if you have like special permit, which is only given to necessary personnel to keep, like some major, important parts of the economy working. But otherwise, everybody is asked to stay home. And so far, it seems to be working. The cases have only been, as of last night, was only under 300 cases. There was a little spike yesterday, but things seems to be under control.
And Amjad, some people may not be aware, Jordan is a constitutional monarchy. It's led by King Abdullah II. How is he being perceived during this pandemic? Are people trusting of the government as this escalates around the world?
Well, Vlad, I've been working for CBS News in the Middle East for 30 years and have never seen anything like this. Usually people in this area do not trust their governments. They're always skeptical of what they're being told. But this time, it seems that people took it seriously and they are more or less abiding by the rules. At the beginning, there was some skepticism, but now people realize that this is serious and that the government is really looking after for themselves. The health minister here in Jordan, for example, has become some sort of public celebrity. Every night he shows up on television at 8 o'clock and the whole nation sits and waits to him to give us the latest numbers. So what the problem is now, that can they keep it going like this? It's been for 2 weeks. Jordan is a poor country and people have to go back to work to earn a living. And this is becoming harder and harder.
So, Amjad, that was going to be my question. As we know, countries are fighting the coronavirus kind of on two fronts. There are the healthcare issues, and then there's the economy. And for a lot of countries, the economy has sort of ground to a halt. What about Jordan? What are the concerns in terms of the economy?
Well, Jordan has been suffering from a severe economic crisis over the past few years. The unemployment rate is really high here, especially amongst the youth. On top of that, we have a serious problem with an influx of refugees from neighboring countries. And, the government was basically virtually bankrupt, before this thing started. But, they basically to get their act together and they said, let's focus on saving the people first. And then it seems that we'll worry about the money later. The problem is now that a lot of Jordanians, like everybody else around the world, but especially here, who rely on, their daily laborers. If they don't work that day, they don't earn a living. And what the aid agencies here are worried is that, people are at some point are going to say, we don't want to die of hunger, we can die of corona. So we want to get out of our homes and earn a living. So far, the government has been assuring the people that don't worry, they deliver bread, for free. They set up some sort of a national fund to aid the poor. But so far it seems to be working. But, I don't know about the long term. It might be really drastic.
And Amjad, hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees are living there in Jordan. Let's talk about how the pandemic is affecting the camps and some of the country's poorest communities, because as you pointed out, the country is poor, and it does, I think for a lot of people who hear what you just said in such stark terms, whether or not you starve to death or whether or not you get sick and perhaps potentially die from the coronavirus. That is a very difficult decision for a family, any human to have to make.
Absolutely. The problem now in Jordan has been, hosting quite a lot of refugees, about 1 million in total, and most of them are, came from Syria. And, what people don't understand is that most of the refugees are actually not in refugee camps. Only 20% of the refugees live inside the camps. I spoke this morning with people, who run the camps from the UNHCR, and they basically said the camps have been sealed off. Luckily, till now, there has not been any cases of corona reported inside the camp. So the camps are basically sealed off. Nobody's allowed in, nobody's allowed out. They only send them food, and they're saying basically the camp are being run on autopilot now, hoping that nothing would happen. They're letting the refugees run themselves. And, what they're doing is that they increase the electricity intake to the camps, they let the internet run faster, and the only thing they're doing is just, doing a huge awareness campaign to tell them just stay in your homes, don't leave, wash your hands, and here is soap and water and food, and don't do anything else, hoping that nothing would happen inside the camp because it's going to be a huge disaster. The camps are very crowded. Now, the people outside the camp is the problem. You have about 800,000 refugees living outside the camp in very unorganized communities. And on top of that, you're having the Jordanian population itself. So, fingers crossed, if this thing can get out of hand, to be drastic. And this is why I think the government, early on realized that the country cannot handle this, and they took those drastic measures that appear so far to be working. And, we hope that this will stay for the long term. The problem now, the government is totally worried that the people is not going to take this seriously, that they're going to see that the number of cases is not that high, 300 compared to our neighbors, and they will stop taking the measures and they'll go out on the streets again, and then we're going to have another influx, and that will be dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Amjad Tadors, thank you very much, my friend. Stay safe, be well. We appreciate it.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.